We are very profoundly excited to welcome you to the ULS house. Yet again, I would like to greet you all. Good morning. Thank you so much, but the voice is a little low. I don't know if it is because of the timing, but here we are. I am by the name Robert Benon Jirua, litigation officer, Rule of Law Department at the Uganda Law Society. We would like to welcome you yet again to this auspicious morning that the Lord has given us on this day that we are going to launch the first and second quarter Rule of Law report at this juncture. We want to thank you so much for making time. We'd like to appreciate each and every individual that has made it physically. We'd also like to appreciate all the individuals that are following us on our different social media handles. Thank you so much for joining us for this occasion. We'd like to recognize everybody who has come here in your particular capacity, and as the day goes by, we shall move forth by appreciating whoever has joined us both within and online. Without further ado, we would like to begin the day with an opening prayer so as to give the activities of the day to the Lord to be in position to have a fruitful day. Could you please have Angel to lead us in an opening prayer? Thank you so much.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for bringing us here today. As we begin this meeting, we ask for your guidance, your wisdom, and clarity. Help us communicate openly and work collaboratively for the good of all. Bless our discussions and decisions so that they may bring positive outcomes. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you so much. We would like to also, as citizens of Uganda and East Africa, sing the national anthem and the East African anthem. We'd like to request that we all stand up in honor of the same.
Mungu twaomba uilinde Jumuiya Afrika Mashariki, tuwezeshe kuishi kwa amani, tutimize na malengo yetu. Jumuiya yetu sote tuilinde, tuajibike, tuimarike. Umoja wetu ni nguzo yetu, idumu jumuiya yetu.
Thank you so much. Once again, we'd like to welcome you to this very, very special day in the country, and as the Uganda Law Society, would like to welcome you to the Rule of Law report launch, which is a part of the activities and objectives of the Uganda Law Society, in which we use this opportunity as a watchdog and as an organization to monitor, to document the state of the rule of law in the country, as our mandate speaks in the Uganda Law Society Act, to help to uphold justice, constitutionalism, and democratic governance. Ladies and gentlemen and distinguished guests, without further ado, would like to take this opportunity to introduce to you the program that is not going to be a very long one. We still reiterate that this is a breakfast meeting, hence you're coming very early. We are very, very grateful for you sparing your time. We all know that you could have been anywhere else. You could have been in office, especially, and you chose to honor the invitation, so we are so honored. We are going to have a very short program that is going to feature, usually, of course, opening remarks from our Chief Executive Officer. We should also be in position to get some remarks from the council member, the treasurer of the Uganda Law Society, who will help us with a rule of law report at a glance, in summary, so to speak. We shall also be hearing from the Vice President of the Uganda Law Society, who will grace us with remarks and a presentation of the report. And thereafter, the Vice President of the Uganda Law Society will also take us through the launch of the report, as we shall see, and thereafter we shall also have a panel discussion of very distinguished guests and representatives of different government departments, which will be followed thereafter by a plenary session. And in that time, we shall also, depending on the availability and the aspects of technology, want to hear from a keynote speaker who is going to be joining us from out of the country in Tanzania, and that is the ELS president. And thereafter, we shall have closing remarks, a group photo, and departure. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a breakfast meeting. We shall do as much as possible to keep it short and hope you're going to enjoy the ride. Thank you so much. At this juncture, I would like to take the honor to welcome the CEO of the Uganda Law Society to grace us with the opening remarks for the occasion. Thank you so much.
I've been introduced already as the CEO of Uganda Law Society. I'm called Christina Wori, and I take this opportunity to welcome our development partners who make it easy for us to be able to serve this country on issues of rule of law and access to justice. We have so many development partners. We have IDLO, we have ADA, we have UNODC, we have UNDP, we have UN Women, and many others who are not mentioned here. Also welcome our stakeholders from Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs. Today we have Mr. Charles Ouma, representing Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs. We have a representative from Electoral Commission. We have a representative from the Inspectorate of Government. We have a representative from the UPDF. We have a representative from the Office of the ODPP. We have a representative from Human Rights Commission. We have a representative from Human Rights Network for Journalists, Mr. Sempala Robert. We have our director of SCTV. We have a representative from Human Rights Center Uganda, Ms. Margaret Sekaja. You are all welcome and good morning. I extend a warm welcome to each and every one of you representing the development partners and the stakeholders. I also welcome our members of Uganda Law Society, both physically here and online. I also welcome the Fourth Estate who are here today. Thank you for gracing us with your presence, for honoring the invitation we extended to you while we launch our first and second quarter rule of law report. For 7 consecutive years, the Uganda Law Society has been steadfastly dedicated to release quarterly rule of law reports, and today we are launching our first and second quarter reports of 2025. Overall, we have launched 29 rule of law reports. I acknowledge the great support received from you all, and the support we have also received from our council members and our membership. As it shall be seen today, today's report highlights the positive developments in promoting rule of law, and it sheds light on areas where we concentrated. We have been having our Radical New Bar every Thursday engagement, and we have been mentioning many issues on rule of law, and also so many statements have been written by our governing council on the state of rule of law in this country. I urge you all participants, both present and online, in here today, to actively participate in this discussion and add a brick to fight what is aimed at fostering the rule of law in this country. Once again, thank you for your presence and the unspated active participation we are yet to see. Thank you for listening to me, for God and my country.
Thank you, our most able CEO, for those brilliant words of wisdom. We take the encouragement. Would like to appreciate the message. We receive it in good faith. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, we would like to welcome the head of department, Rule of Law, Ms. Afra Apio, to give us the Rule of Law report at a glance, to get a few highlights of what is expected in the report, so as to nourish your minds with what is yet to come. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I stand on the protocol that has already been observed. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Apio Afra, and I'm the head rule of law, Uganda Law Society. As the Uganda Law Society, we are mandated under Section 3 of the ULS Act to protect and assist the public in Uganda in all matters touching, ancillary or incidental to the law, and to assist the government and the courts in all matters affecting legislation and the administration and practice of law in Uganda. Our vision as a society is to be a proficient bar association in fostering access to justice, the rule of law, and good governance in Uganda. As per our vision and statutory mandate, ULS issues rule of law quarterly reports as a check on the rule of law situation in Uganda. The report we are launching today covers the first and the second quarter of 2025, that is January to June 2025. In this report, we note that according to the World Justice Project Rule of Law Index, Uganda currently ranks 126th out of 142 countries in 2024, which is near to the bottom. This reflects a poor performance in upholding the rule of law, and there is a lot that needs to be done. In our rule of law report, we note the positive developments and negative developments during the reporting period. Some of the positive developments include the landmark Supreme Court decision in Michael Kabaziguruka versus Attorney General, which rendered the trial of civilians in military courts unconstitutional. The release of the Police Annual Crime Report 2024, the action of Equal Opportunities Commission in reinstating a pregnant student back to school after she had been expelled. Uganda Human Rights Commission awarding compensation for victims of human rights violation. Some of the negative developments are passing of the UPDF Amendment Act,
which was in contravention to the Supreme Court decision in Michael Kabaziguruka versus Attorney General, failure to transfer cases from military courts to civilian courts, the arrest and detention of Advocate Aaron Kiza, abductions, torture, and the forced disappearance of people such as Eddie Motwem, electoral violence and suppression of the freedom of press during the Kawempe North by-elections, case backlog, Kampala flooding and infringement on the right to a clean and healthy environment, corruption and embezzlement of the parish development funds. This report also highlights pertinent legislation that is still pending in Parliament, and these include the Legal Aid Bill, Human Rights Defenders Protection Bill of 2020, Sexual Offences Bill of 2019, Witness Protection Bill of 2015, Marriage Bill of 2024. We call for fast tracking of these bills to ensure the protection and promotion of human rights. The report concludes with the initiatives ULS has undertaken to promote the rule of law. These include filing a case at the East African Court of Justice to address the gaps in the Supreme Court judgment, declaration of the Alliance Against Electoral Violence, issuing press statements as a tool for advocacy, public awareness through the Rnblive weekly press and public engagements, prison engagements by the Eastern Bar, youth engagement through the various rule of law clubs. Thank you, our stakeholders, for being present today. We look forward to sharing knowledge and collaborating further to promote the rule of law and respect for human rights in Uganda. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Ms. Afra. A report worth listening to once again and taking in to context, because of course we are not going to try to act like it is the best. We are not necessarily performing so well, being number 15 from behind is not the best. We've all been to school. We knew how traumatizing it was for your results to come out like that. Nonetheless, we are also going to take into context that Uganda is still growing as a nation. We are not perfect, but that is the reason we are here, for brains and beautiful minds to sit together and address these issues, to see to it that the nation can perform better. That is our clarion call to all citizens of the country, and we are going to imagine that we are in the best place right now under the auspice of Uganda Law Society that is helping to address these issues. Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to take the honor to invite the Vice President of the Uganda Law Society, Advocate Anthony Asimwe, who is in the house and is going to give us his remarks, as well as take us through the presentation of the report, and at that, launch it so as to have some talking points therefrom. Ladies and gentlemen, the Vice President of the Uganda Law Society, thank you so much.
Thank you, Robert. Allow me stand on the protocol earlier observed by the Chief Executive Officer. And on behalf of the Uganda Law Society, I warmly welcome you to this significant national event. That is the official launch of our first and second quarter rule of law reports for the year 2025. We usually launch every quarter, but this time around we decided to combine the two quarters. That is why we're having two quarters at the same time. Your presence here today is significant to the promotion of human rights, rule of law, and good governance. I do extend special appreciation to the representatives from the judiciary who are here with us and those online, the Executive Council of the Uganda Law Society, the Uganda Human Rights Commission, the civil society, academia, development partners, the media, members of the public, and my fellow advocates from the Uganda Law Society, especially those who have made it here physically. Where are the members we have in the house? Let's clap for the members who have come here physically. I know it's court vacation, but even then, the times are tasking are hard for any practicing advocate. It's not very easy out there. But for you to sacrifice your time and you come here to be with us physically, it's an indication that you're committed to the cause for promotion of rule of law. I also know and note that we have a lot of online attendance by members and other, members of the public, not necessarily members of the society. We are glad to have you. Now, this quarterly rule of law report launch is not just a ceremonial occasion. We've moved away from mere ceremonies. It is a moment of collective reflection, accountability, and forward planning. A moment where we assess our journey as a nation through the lens of law. It is always an opportunity for us to speak the truth to power, to acknowledge progress where it has been made, and to raise red flags where violations persist. It's our duty, and it's our role, and we shall continue to do that. It's actually our statutory mandate to do that for the benefit of the members of the public. That is why I say this is not just, a ceremonial occasion, but rather one that needs to make us focus on all that and speak out. Now, what is rule of law and where do we stand as a country? Let me begin with this interesting quote. These are the haunting words famously attributed to Pastor Martin Niemöller. He was a German pastor. That first, they came for the socialites, and I did not speak out because I was not socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews. I did not speak out. I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was nobody left to speak for me. At the Uganda Society, we do believe that we are the voices of the voiceless. That is why we come out and speak. If lawyers cannot speak for those who cannot speak for themselves, then it will be of no use to society. But again, this should not be only the duty of the lawyers. It is everyone's responsibility as we follow that quote. This should remind us that in a society where rule of law is ignored or selectively applied, no one is safe. When injustice against one group or even one person is tolerated, it becomes a slow erosion of protection for all. A lawless society eventually devours even those who once believed themselves immune to its consequences. Therefore, in a lawless society, no one is safe. And I believe in the past few weeks, we've seen evidence of this. We've seen individuals and people have always assumed they are safe or they will be protected, also crying foul, saying, please come to my rescue. I don't want to mention the names at this time, but for those who have been following, this is obvious. You know that in the recent past, you had mention of even some of our members of the bar. You had the situation of Aaron Kiza. You saw when we had our member, Abedna Samudiobode, who was also, abducted, disappeared for a few days. We had to look for him, go through the legal processes. That is a member of the bar. And most recently, also have a member, Barnabas Tinkasimiri, who is a member of the ruling party, who was sharing his ordeal of how he was abducted in broad daylight, taken to blindfolded, taken to places he didn't know, and later released. But you saw, this speaks to that in a lawless society where there's no respect for rule of law, nobody is safe. It doesn't matter who you are, it will eventually get to you. The rule of law is the bedrock of a just, peaceful, and democratic society. It ensures that all individuals and institutions, regardless of status or power, are accountable under the law, that justice is administered impartially, and that fundamental rights and freedoms are respected. Whereas the question can be subjectively answered, a functioning rule of law framework safeguards the dignity of individuals, promotes economic stability, curbs abuse of power, and nurtures public trust in state institutions. Where the rule of law is weak, societies are prone to arbitrary governance, widespread corruption, and persistent human rights violations. It is therefore essential that the health of the rule of law be regularly assessed, not only through domestic reflection, but also by independent international benchmarks. That is why, as a country, we are signatory, we are parties to most of those international documents that emphasize promotion and protection of human rights. In the 2024 World Justice Project Rule of Law Index, like Afra said earlier, Uganda was ranked 125th out of 142 countries globally and 26th out of 34 in sub-Saharan Africa, an overall decline from previous years. We were doing a little bit better before, but as per last year's report, there's a decline. What does that show us? What does that indicate? The country's lowest scores were in the areas of constraints on government powers, fundamental rights, absence of corruption, and criminal justice. Some of you have been following, must have noticed, last week we celebrated, we had our Pro Bono week, and we decided to focus on criminal justice, specifically ensuring that we can push for reforms in the criminal justice system. These actions or these interventions are guided by some of these findings. We can only do what we can. That's why we focus on where there is, a lot of need. These scores highlight enduring concerns around unchecked executive authority, arbitrary arrests and detentions, limits on freedom of expression and association, and systematic corruption across all branches of government. Uganda's poor performance in criminal justice also points to persistent issues such as police abuse, prison overcrowding, and delayed trials. These trends call for urgent national reflection and collective action to restore public confidence and align state practice with constitutional and international standards. We need to focus on having a human rights-based approach in everything we do, whether it's an institution, whether it's an individual, in governance. That is what we should all focus on as a nation. Now, what is the mandate and vision of the Uganda Law Society? Like I said earlier, as the National Bar Association in Uganda, the Uganda Law Society is duty-bound not only to regulate the legal profession, not only to focus on members' affairs, but also to promote access to justice and the rule of law in Uganda. Our mandate under Section 3 of the Uganda Law Society Act is anchored in building a just and equitable society governed by the Constitution and the law. In furtherance of this mission, these rule of law reports stand out as one of our flagship interventions, consistent principles and evidence-based. We believe we must document these things. We need to have documentation, because without this evidence and research, then it will be hard to believe what we are saying. You must have also noticed in the past few months, since we came into office, the Radical New Bar focused on weekly engagements. We call it Rnblive. And most of our discussions on a weekly basis is the prevailing rule of law issues that week. That's how much important, that's the importance we attach to the promotion of the rule of law in this country. And that's how intentional we've been, and that's how we intend to continue. And that is, like I said, in furtherance of our constitutional, on our statutory obligation in the Act. Since 2017, ULS has produced and published quarterly rule of law reports to monitor and advocate for the respect of legal and constitutional standards in Uganda. Today marks the launch of the 29th edition of this report, which covers the first half of the year 2025. So what are our parameters of assessment? Or what do we measure and why? This report is not a collection of opinions or anecdotes. It is the outcome of rigorous monitoring and evaluation based on 4 key parameters that underpin a society governed by the rule of law. The first one of the 4 being respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms. These are the guidelines. This is the basis upon which we produce this report. The extent to which civil, political, economic, social, and cultural rights are respected and protected across the country. The second one is climate of legality. And that refers to whether laws are being applied consistently and fairly, whether justice institutions are functioning independently, and whether state actors respect the supremacy of the Constitution. This is one of the most important aspects we focus on, supremacy of the Constitution. Do we as individuals and state actors or agencies respect this? The third is accountability and transparency. And this looks at whether public officers are held accountable for abuse of office and whether transparency is being promoted in governance and service delivery. Last evening, we had an X-Space engagement with, I think, students of Nkumba University. And the discussion was about, protection of the rights in the Constitution, especially freedom from torture, also focusing on Article 44 of the Constitution. And as we're concluding, we're making recommendations. And the major outcome that we saw even from where we're headed is holding individual perpetrators accountable. We've seen some court judgments, decisions where people have brought actions under the Human Rights Enforcement Act, have been awarded damages. Before it would be the government to pay that on a general, but we are seeing a shift where individuals are sued and they should be held accountable. But is that enough? Is the country, even the justice sector, focusing on how do we prevent any further occurrences of this by sending a message? Because I also know, as we shall see later, sometimes institutions are rated so badly because of some overzealous individuals. But again, whose responsibility is it to ensure that those individuals in those institutions are kept in line? They do what they are supposed to do. The fourth is separation of powers and institutional independence. And this looks at the extent to which the executive, legislature, and judiciary respect their boundaries and preserve institutional checks and balances. This is another yardstick we use while making these reports. These criteria are rooted in Uganda's constitutional framework and in international norms such as the Universal Declaration on Human Rights, the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, and the Sustainable Development Goals, particularly Goal 16 on peace, justice, and strong institutions. These are the international instruments I referred to earlier, which we've domesticated in our constitution and other legislation that has come after that to try and keep in line. Now, this is the summary of findings of the first and second quarterly reports, that is 2025. The first being focused on progress and setbacks. The reports that we launched today highlight both encouraging developments and areas of significant concern. The positive developments will begin with some positive achievements which are worth acknowledging. And I'll not go deep into this, but we have judicial courage in the Kabaziguruka case, where we saw the Supreme Court clearly come out and, nullifies the trial of civilians in military courts. This had been a cry, something we had been pushing for. this decision had been pending in the Supreme Court for over 4 years, and it had taken a lot of advocacy. But we take note that the judiciary, the Supreme Court, came out and made a decision on that. This was a watershed moment for the independence of the judiciary and a commendable affirmation of constitutionalism. The second one is institutional transparency by the Uganda Police Force. The release of the 2024 annual crime report is an important step toward greater transparency and accountability in law enforcement. The third is promotion of economic and social rights. The Equal Opportunities Commission here made notable progress in promoting the rights to education through targeted interventions in disadvantaged communities. This was by reinstating a nursing student back to school, who were approached by this student who had been stopped from doing exams because she was pregnant. And this was a test we thought we needed to test other institutions. And while discussing as council, we felt whereas we could rush to court and get remedies, these people called us on a Wednesday, exams are beginning on a Friday. We took note, said, now if you are to file a matter in court, by the time you get a date, by the time you have a hearing, probably people will even be finishing, another term, another year. So we felt we have institutions that are mandated to conduct some of these roles. And I personally wrote to Equal Opportunities Commission. I hope we have a representative here. I was particularly impressed by the quick response we got from the Equal Opportunities Commission, because the day we sent this letter, the day we referred this student, we immediately received feedback. A letter went directing the school, the institute, the institution to reinstate her and allow her to do her exams. So we do see that progress, and I believe if we continue working like that as institutions, we'll get better. Now, violations and areas of concern. Despite these gains above, the report also brings to light deeply troubling violations. The first one being legislative rollbacks on judicial gains. And here I will talk about the enactment of the UPDF Amendment Act directly contravenes the Supreme Court's decision in the Kabaziguruka case. This undermines the doctrine of judicial supremacy and sends a worrying message about the commitment to constitutional governance. Second is the trial of civilians in military courts. The continued detention of civilians pending illegal trial before these military tribunals is a violation of due process and contradicts both the Constitution and the international human rights standards. We all know that after that decision on 31st January, there was a lot of excitement. But what happened after that? We've hardly seen anyone being released from prison. Anyone who was undergoing trial in the military courts being released. And this I'll speak to the Karachunas, thousands of them who were in prison, those we met during our pro bono week and before, who still await some other kind of remedy, but we believe that their stay in detention is illegal because it has no basis whatsoever. C is the persistent overcrowding in prisons. Overcrowding remains a systematic issue, largely driven by delayed trials, excessive pretrial detention, and insufficient prison infrastructure. During our 2025 Pro Bono Week, which we had last week, our teams visited several detention facilities and uncovered shocking realities. For example, at Luzira Upper Prison, it was found that 60% of inmates were pretrial detainees, some of whom having spent over 5 years without a hearing. As of July 2025, the national prison population stood at 79,000, against an official capacity of 21,000. This presents an occupancy rate of near 380%. These numbers demand urgent reform in our criminal justice system. There's a lot of human rights abuses that come with this kind of overcrowding. Think of 380%. The space of one person occupied by over 5 people. What does that show us? The last one is targeting of lawyers in the course of their work. The arrest and harassment of advocates such as Advocate Aaron Kiza not only undermines the legal profession, but also sends chilling signals to other defenders of justice and human rights. I had earlier mentioned other members and advocates, but this was particularly in the course of, doing his work. That's why I mentioned that. Enforced disappearances, illegal detentions, and torture. The report documents abductions and disappearances involving Advocate Abedna Samudiobore, Honorable Barnabas Tinkasimire, and Eddie Mutwe, among many other Ugandans. These acts are grave violations of human dignity and constitutional order. The other one is election-related violence and suppression of the press. The violence and suppression witnessed during the Kawempe by-elections reflect a dangerous pattern of repression that undermines Uganda's democratic trajectory. Outside the official reporting period, we cannot ignore the recent violence that marred the internal NRM party elections. This was just this month. Our report ends as of 30th June, end of June. But much as this is outside, we have to mention, particularly in Zimbabwe, Kampala, Luwero, and other districts, these events suggest a widening pattern of political repression and impunity that must be reversed and dealt with before the 2026 general elections. Now, these are our action-oriented recommendations and follow-up mechanisms as per the report. Each section of the report is accompanied by targeted recommendations addressed to specific stakeholders, including the executive, the judiciary, parliament, Uganda Police Force, the Uganda Prison Service, the Uganda Human Rights Commission, and many others. Through these recommendations, the ULS will track and follow up through strategic stakeholder engagements and even employing radical advocacy measures where necessary. That is where the term radicalism comes from. We do not believe in complacency or coming back here and we are saying the same things. We must have progress. We must track these recommendations and report on the progress of what we've reported the next time we meet. Our goal as the bar is not just to highlight breaches of the law, but to influence behavior, institutional reforms, and policy outcomes. Therefore, we shall establish a results matrix and monitoring framework to periodically assess the responsiveness of stakeholders to the issues raised in these reports. We will not relent until the recommendations we make here, or the ones we've made in the report and the others we shall add, evolve into reforms for a better and just society. Now, a collective responsibility, and here we appreciate our partners. As the Ugandan society, we do not take this work for granted. We acknowledge and appreciate the incredible support of the Governing Council, whose guidance, oversight, and moral clarity keeps us rooted in our core values of effective radical reforms. We equally extend our gratitude to our membership, civil society, media, that's the fourth estate, it's very important. Every week we have engagements, we have the media here covering what we are saying and speaking out and sending this information out there for the members of the public. These and among other state and non-state actors, who have stood by us as we fight for the rule of law. I appreciate, I don't want to leave this, the staff of the Ugandan Society, the Secretariat, under the guidance of our able Chief Executive Officer, and especially for this day, the Rule of Law Department, for compiling the report and for keeping our rule of law agenda alive. Should clap for yourselves, or we all clap for you. As I conclude, let me end with a powerful reminder from the former United Nations Secretary General Kofi Annan, that the rule of law is not a luxury. It is the foundation of equitable and inclusive development, and it is a shared responsibility. Indeed, the rule of law is not a duty of lawyers alone. It is a collective function, and according to the late G.W. Kanyehamba, who we buried yesterday, the duty we all owe to our Constitution, to future generations, and to each other. Protection of the rule of law. I call upon each and every one of you to uphold and fight for the rule of law in your sphere of influence, however small it might be. It is enough. Let these reports ignite change in our communities, especially in this electoral season. All of us know we are entering one of the most dangerous seasons because of our history and what we've seen in these few, the Kawempe by-election and the NRM primaries. This should ignite our passion and courage to work. As Uganda Society, we remain committed to promoting human rights, uphold the rule of law, and foster good governance in Uganda. Thank you for listening to me, and I wish all of you impactful discussions. And I believe before I leave the stage, I am supposed to launch the report. Have you distributed copies? We have a few copies, hard copies. We are moving into digital transformation, digital era. We do believe have shared or share soft copies with the membership and those who can access the same. But we do have a few hard copies that will guide us through this discussion. And as I wait to launch, I ask Secretariat, please distribute the reports, the hard copies. And as they distribute, I thank you very much for listening to me and for being here today once again. Thank you. All right. As we launch, we'll do sign on this dummy rule of law report. I will sign first, then Secretariat will help us by calling the members present to also append their signature on this report. I'll be the first one to go.
Members of the table closest, kindly feel free to come up front to sign. Thank you. just to remind us that this is common practice. The Uganda Law Society has been in the habit of having these activities undertaken and followed up by commitments, and would like to use this as a sign of accountability for the work that we are mandated to do as enshrined in the Uganda Law Society Act. We have had engagements, we've had memoranda of understanding with different government departments, different organizations, to see to it that we are held accountable when the time is right. And as Martin Luther King Jr. said, it's not about the today, it's really about the name that you leave after your time is done and in the time of the next generation. We're really so thankful. Thank you so much. We also take cognizance of arguably our most senior advocate in the House, who is currently signing the Deputy Solicitor General, Counsel Charles Ouma. Thank you so much for taking the honor to associate with us. We don't take it for granted. Thank you so much. We thank you so much, Counsel State Chimoli. Thank you so much for associating with us. We appreciate. We're going to use this to make accountability for the things that we're out here to do. So please feel free to know that your signature is not going to go in vain. You'll have the right, you'll have the power to ask for accountability. Thank you. Mommy, thank you so much for making time. We appreciate. We're really, really grateful for your presence. Everyone will sign, don't worry. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. At this juncture, being a historic moment, we are going to kindly request the front three tables to kindly come up with their physical copies for a historic photo moment in evidence of what we have just done, so as to make this a memorable day. Yes. How could we forget you? Thank you so much. Yeah, let's come up. The photo moment is just going to be across the stage. We shall remove the dummy. Cameraman, kindly guide the team.
On the Stay here one more time. Remind me what it's like. And let's fall in love one more time. I need you now by my side. It tears me up when you turn me down. I'm begging, please, just stick around. I'm sorry, don't leave me. I want you here with me. I know that your love is coming.
All right, thank you so much. Welcome back from that auspicious moment. We are so grateful, and we continue to stand together as a nation and as a continent. We are here to handle rule of law and ensure that our nation climbs those stairs until we reach a cognizable position. We thank you so much once again. Just for you to be reminded, this is a breakfast meeting. Our tea is ready at the back. We are going to kindly request that as the program goes on, you are requested to take a step back to the behind part, have yourself served a cup of tea or coffee, and return to the table as we get into the next agenda item, which is a panel discussion in order for us to engage certain key representatives of different government departments and organizations in order to appreciate where we are coming from, and also given the very, very elaborate speech of the Vice President, we are at a very critical moment, a dispensational moment that is going to require heads to come together and see to it that the next year, which is very, very critical in the nation of elections, is going to be peaceful and have the rule of law to speak more than anything else. Every other 5 years is a test period, and the year before that is actually even more important, because over time there has been a lot of engagement with the different government departments. The parliament has been visited by a number of institutions. There has been private members' bills. There has been a lot of recommendations coming from the last election, and this is the moment that we use to try to engage the public in representation of the people, because as we are all aware, we cannot do without these elections. Ladies and gentlemen, we are reminded about the breakfast meeting that we are going to be picked out. We shall be ushered to the table of service by our staff members. One of them will come and walk you to the back and have a cup of tea or coffee. At this juncture, I would like to introduce my moderator, Madam or Miss Anne Karunji, who is going to guide us through the panel discussion as the moderator, and we shall have to move with how she's going to guide us. So thank you so much. We'd like to welcome my senior, Anne Karunji, who is going to take us through the next agenda item. Thank you so much.
Good morning once again, ladies and gentlemen. As I have been introduced, my name is Anne Karunji. I'm an advocate of the courts of judicature in our country, and also a member of the Rule of Law Committee of the Uganda Law Society. We thank you for attending such a momentous occasion in the history of our country. You know, the rule of law and the respect for fundamental human rights are the bedrock of any democratic dispensation. So the launch of this report is very timely to the political climate of our country. We are going to enter into what we call a panel discussion, and we have various important personalities, distinguished personalities, who are going to come to the podium and take their spaces, and then we have this panel discussion. Then after that, we shall open it up to the plenary on matters that arise out of the report. So before that, I will ask my co-moderator to come and share their bios. As they read your name, please come and take your space on the podium. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Council. Our first panelist is a social justice advocate and the winner of the European Union Human Rights Defenders Award in 2016. He is also the Executive Director of Human Rights Network for Journalists. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome with me, Mr. Sempala Robert. Our next panelist is an advocate of the courts of judicature with 16 years of public service. She joined the service in 2009 as an officer and is currently the Director, Complaints, Investigations, and Legal Services at the Uganda Human Rights Commission. Previously, she worked with the Inspectorate of Government before joining the Uganda Human Rights Commission. She also served as a part-time lecturer at the Uganda Christian University, and in addition to the Bachelor of Laws from Makerere University and a postgraduate diploma in legal practice, she holds a Master of Laws in International Economic Law from the University of South Africa, as well as a postgraduate diploma in Public Administration and Management from Uganda Management Institute. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome with me, Miss Pauline Nansamba Mutumba. Thank you so much. Our next panelist is the chairperson of the Coalition Against Torture, that is CAT Uganda, and a member of the Judiciary Council representing the public. He is also the CEO of African Center of the Rehabilitation of Torture Victims, that is ACTV. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome with me, Mr. Samuel Herbert Nsubuga. Thank you so much. But as well, Mr. Nsubuga sits, his experience has been so expansive that as we address the issues of rule of law, we also need to know that he was an executive committee member representing the Sub-Saharan Africa on International Rehabilitation Council for Torture Victims, IRCT, from December 2016 up to September 2020. But also beyond that, he was a council member representing East Africa on the International Rehabilitation Council for Torture Victims, again RICT, from November 2012 to November 2016. He further was a board chairperson of the Legal Aid Services Providers Network, that's ASPNet, from October 2014 to October 2018. He holds a master's in business administration, where he majored in strategic management. He also holds a Bachelor of Arts in social sciences, economic, and political science. Ladies and gentlemen, we're so honored to have you on the panel, and we really, really appreciate you. Thank you so much. Our next panelist is has 25 years experience in public relations and communication. He holds a bachelor's degree in mass communication, media studies from Makerere University, and a master of philosophy in media, democracy, and development. He has previously worked as the advisor and head of communications at the Office of the Prime Minister, a communications advisor at the Commonwealth Secretariat, a senior communications officer, a senior reporter at the New Vision, and a news reporter at the Daily Monitor. Currently, he serves as the head of public relations and spokesperson of the Electoral Commission Uganda. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome with me Mr. Julius Muchunguzi. Is he here? Might have stepped out. We shall have his presence. Kindly, staff. Miss Gwenny. Yeah. Then finally, we have a member of the Rule of Law Committee and a senior member of the bar, and that is Counsel George Musisi, who has been a part of this journey, with whom we have interacted, and he has been ahead on this desk as we are talking, to also delve into matters rule of law. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome with me Counsel George Musisi. Thank you so much. In the meantime, as the panel discussion begins, we are reminded that there is something to bite and drink at the back. Kindly feel free to engage. Thank you so much. I would like to turn the mic back to my to my colleague Anne, as we source for Mr. Muchunguzi. Please excuse us. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. So we have a panel of very distinguished people. We wanted Mr. Muchunguzi as the representative of the Electoral Commission to be here because there are pertinent issues that we thought that he would tackle and address. Yeah, that can make this whole discussion holistic. But let's wait. I believe we shall see him walking into the doors because he was here earlier. So without further ado, I will start with I'm told he had other commitments. We might not have him, but be that as it may, we will continue. So I will start with Mr. Herbert Nsubuga from the African Center, for the treatment and rehabilitation of torture victims. My question to you is, one, is there torture in Uganda? Or have you witnessed incidents of torture in Uganda? Then two, looking at the recently, not so recent, but the legislature that was put in place to cause courts to investigate any incidents of torture whenever victims are brought for criminal trials. Have courts put in place that legislature by first halting the trials of those victims and then investigating, if there is, into the question of torture? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, yes, torture is prevalent in Uganda, and over the years we have registered above 1,000 people on our centers. We have a number of centers in the country. Here in Kampala, we have a branch in Gulu, we have a field office in Kasese, and a center in Kabong, which was launched last year. And being that we are a torture treatment and rehabilitation center, we endeavor to be a one-stop center because we provide holistic care, torture having both physical and psychological effects. We have a diverse human resource which has doctors, clinical psychologists, social workers, and legal officers, because we develop medical legal reports which are used by the courts of law and the Uganda Human Rights Commission. And that takes me to your second question. There are some judicial officers who have actually implemented that clause in the law that when one appears in the courts of law and he or she shows signs of being tortured, they send the people to be treated first, and then the takes its course. But of course, there have also been some officers who unfortunately have not been taking it up. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, secondly, we shall go to the second panelist, Madam Pauline Mutumba. You are a body in this country that is mandated with the protection and promotion of human rights. We have just heard in the launch of this report that we performed poorly in the World Justice Index, that we came out number 126 out of 142 in terms of government accountability, respect and promotion of fundamental human rights and the rule of law, and also in terms of prevention of corruption. Why is that so? Then two, looking at our recently concluded primaries, NRM primaries, have there been any complaints that have been brought to the Commission regarding violence or abuses of human rights in the entire electoral process? Have there been complaints that have been brought to your office? And how have you addressed them? Thank you.
Thank you, Anne, and good morning to us all. Why are we performing so poorly? I think that is a question for all of us in the room. Let me just start by saying that when it comes to the obligation to protect and promote human rights, the state is the primary duty bearer. So as Uganda Human Rights Commission, our role is really an oversight role to hold the state and other actors accountable to the commitments that they themselves have made. And I think that's important for us to appreciate. We all know that international law prospers on the basis of the willingness of the state parties. That is why one of the things that we do is to monitor the treaties that we've ratified. Are we meeting our commitments as a state party? Are we meeting our commitments to those? So why are we performing poorly? I would say that the ministries, departments, and agencies that have the primary responsibility to ensure that we are meeting these standards sometimes fall short. And for me, that is not the issue, because if there was no falling short, there would be no need for accountability mechanisms. The question that is important for me is, how are we addressing these shortfalls when they happen? We have all these mechanisms. For example, as Uganda Human Rights Commission, every year statutorily, we publish a report that we are required to submit to Parliament. And in that report, we have recommendations to ministries, departments, and agencies. The Human Rights Committee of Parliament goes through that report and calls all those ministries, departments, and agencies to account. Uganda Human Rights Commission discovered this. What actions have you taken? The information that is picked from that actually now feeds into the regional and international mechanisms where we report. So it's very important when my senior brother in the Ministry of Justice goes to account now as a state party to say, we committed to the UNCAT, the Convention Against Torture. These are the actions that we've taken to address that. That is part of the accountability system that exists. So why are we performing poorly? Our response mechanisms as the state primarily need to be more efficient. We need to speak more to one another to appreciate that our failures, this performance of 126 out of 142, affects Uganda. It's not, because sometimes I think we divorce ourselves from these realities. We think that is a human rights problem. But if Uganda is not performing well on rule of law and these other issues, it affects the economy, it affects our tourism, it affects how we relate with other states that consider themselves to be serious states. So my call and appeal would be that the state parties, the primary duty bearers, take these recommendations, these observations seriously and appreciate the impact that this has on all of us as a nation. so we can do better as duty bearers. Have we received any complaints regarding election violence surrounding this particular season of the primaries? I haven't yet received any, but I know that there are mechanisms within the party systems that are dealing with complaints of election violence. But we did, during the Kawempe by-election, we did receive several complaints around that, and our investigations are complete, and actually in our next tribunal session, we will be handling some of those cases. But I must also add that we still have some very old cases from as far back as 2016 that have not yet been heard, primarily because of logistical and administrative challenges. So those are some of the things that we are trying to address, to see that the time within which we are able to investigate and hear these cases is reduced.
I will go to Mr. Robert Sempala of Human Rights Network for Journalists, Uganda. Looking at the current political climate in our country, has it been easy for the fourth estate to do its work? What challenges have you faced, and how are you navigating them? Because you know that you have guarantees, constitutional guarantees, press freedom, international guarantees to which Uganda is a party, a signatory. So how have you navigated, or if there are challenges, how have you navigated them, and what is the climate like for journalists and their work?
Thank you very much. I want to recognize Madam Margaret Sekaja, my former board chair of the National Coalition of Human Rights Defenders. She ceded her chair for me. I'm the board chair of the National Coalition of Human Rights Defenders. So I'm happy that she's here to see how we're progressing. The fourth estate is a very unwanted witness in so many folds. Yeah, they must do their work, but it's unwanted. And that manifestation has been seen through many times of the political activisms. In here, the media, or the fourth estate, as we call it, has been highly, highly suffocated. And we can say that has not been able to execute its fullest mandate of being the ears and eyes of the general public, of holding the powerful accountable, of playing an oversight role over a government, and yeah.
You might need to have some officials from the society behind to ensure that maybe the wind doesn't. It was the wind, eh?
Yes.
Okay.
We are back on track.
We are back on track.
Okay, now that we are back on track, I just want to add that the members of the fourth estate go through a lot to do the little that we are able to see them do, to expose gross abuse of power and offices, to expose the corrupt, because the media plays a very central role in that. But most importantly, to do a role of sensitizing Ugandans about everything around them in order to make informed decisions for them, for us as a society. The main challenges, of course, physical aggression against the journalists that go to the field. And that is an attack on journalism, or the practice of it, practice of journalism. It's through attacking individual practitioners. And in here, we have documented a lot of cases. We recently produced a press freedom index the 16th of its kind, and clearly showed that the men in uniform have been at the forefront of violating press freedom. The unfortunate bit about it is the lack of accountability mechanisms for the errors that come out in these reports regularly, and also lack of action by the relevant actors, including the legislature. Of course, courts have played their custodial role in trying to protect the journalists when we run there. We can't complain about the cases taking fairly longer. That's understandable, because we are not only, ours are not the only cases in courts, but the courts must be commended for really doing their best to protect the journalists in the line of duty. The other challenge is about political interference in the work of the Fourth Estate. Many media houses cannot claim to be independent as we speak, because the operations are highly hindered by the invisible hand of the powerful politicians through either the regulators, UCC, through the Media Council of Uganda, issuing out administrative sanctions to media houses that are seen to be critically independent, and also through the security agencies in their different layers. And we have so many journalists that are severally incarcerated at the different police stations over the work that they do. We have journalists that have been suspended from duty. We have already issued a notice of intention to sue the UCC for suspending journalists in Western Uganda over what we think is supposed to be their work. And we are challenging the arbitrariness in handling cases involving journalists, where journalists are not heard. So there is no due process of the law. They are not heard. Decisions are made against them. They have an overarching impact on the entire practice of journalism, and they have the ability to percolate fear into the practitioners. So in a nutshell, I can say that the media has not been able to do its full-scale mandate because of the attendant environment in which they practice. We have made several recommendations to the key actors. So we want to commend the Uganda Human Rights Commission. It has come out strongly lately, not always all the time, but lately, to address issues that come from the Fourth Estate, but also members of the public. These have been the shields of the Fourth Estate. They have captured pieces of evidence, they have gone to police to testify, they have come everywhere to protect journalists. So I think we need to sensitize the citizens more about the critical role that the media plays in a democracy. And if we are able to achieve that, I know that we will have gone a long way. But as we tend towards 2026, as we've tagged it, I can't say that the media will play its role so well, given the violence that has unfolded over time, mainly through the Kawempe North by-elections, the recent party primaries, where in southern central Uganda, journalists' names were mentioned. So and so, you're not welcome here. Then those threatening them would raise a nkoni in the air to say, if you come, they didn't say we will beat you, but say, if you come, then they were raising nkoni in the air, yeah? And those videos were making rounds. So in such a situation, you cannot say that the journalists are brave enough to go and meet the wrath of the nkoni holding men. Yeah. Thank you.
So now the next question goes to my senior colleague, Councillor George Musisi. What is your take on this report that has been unveiled today and the issues that arise therefrom? We have the Supreme Court decision, Constitutional Appeal number 2. We have the issue of the UPDF Amendment Act and all the issues that arise. Okay, some of them you can touch on something. Then also, looking at the political climate in this country, as a member of the public and the bar, are we ready as a nation, is there a readiness, or do you think that the institutions that are mandated to prepare Ugandans for the general elections have done their work to say that we are safely ready for the 2026 general elections? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. When the CEO was highlighting the positive aspects of the report, she rightly mentioned that the Kabazuguruka Supreme Court decision was one of our gifts as they began, 31st January. And the whole nation, not just lawyers, but the whole nation came united in joy. Why? Not because people were tired of military courts. Our senior colleague Raphael is here, Fandi Raphael. But the contention has always been the trial of civilians in those courts and the issue of their independence and so on. It's sad that some of those orders, today as we speak at the end of July, this judgment which was delivered on 31st January, have not been implemented. One of the key orders was that files involving civilians should be transferred to ordinary courts. That has been done at a very slow pace. We have a number of files that are still, we don't know where they are. I don't know whether I should go and ask Fandi Raphael who last had them, or I should go to DPP and demand for them. So we are somehow caught up in that frenzy. Meanwhile, we have people in custody who don't know. Because a person who is a suspect, even if you're in custody and you've not been given bail, there are some reliefs you can seek from court. Right now, they don't know which appropriate court. We've gone to the High Court, Criminal Division, to apply for bail. You know that even by going to Criminal Division, we first had problems. Remember when Dr. Vesija and Aaron, we went to Civil Division said, we cannot entertain you. But we have bail applications lying before the Criminal Division of the High Court, some of which were filed as late as March, April, which have not been fixed. We know that the bail guidelines, which DPP loves to quote so much, say that a bail application should be heard and determined within 30 days. We have bail applications lying before courts, not 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, more than 100 days before being heard. So whereas my brother Robert has been applauding the judiciary for handling the media, actually and it's sad that His Worship Yeremi is not here, because the judiciary has done a disservice to those people by not entertaining, because we all know that at least the right to apply for bail is a constitutional right. At least they should be heard. You can make a decision on rejecting the applications. So most of those files arising from the 31st January Supreme Court decisions have not been heard, have not been determined. And that meaning there are people who are still being left in custody. Of course, which takes me to another issue mentioned, Chair, on the amendment process of the UPDF amendment bill. Of course, some of us have issues with that, with the act as it is now, which has been published. Some of us have gone to court, Constitutional Court, to challenge it. We challenge the substantive matter regarding some of us who believe that it goes in some respect, not all respect, but in some respect, it goes against the decision of court, which, as we all know in the room, is unconstitutional to legislate against a court decision. But then, even the manner in which it was done, we all know that the essence of public participation was not done. ULS here, as we speak, we remember that ULS received a letter inviting it to before the joint committees of legal and parliamentary affairs and defense. They were invited to appear before midday, and the letter reached here at 11:50 p.m. We know that the clerk to parliament published a notice in the newspaper saying you can bring your views by not later than tomorrow, and the notice was published in the papers that morning before the bill was laid by the minister in parliament that afternoon. So the public participation was perfunctory. We think that maybe the Supreme Court, the Constitutional Court, will have a chance to talk about that. But then, most importantly, is the issue of the elections, preparedness of elections. We have a lot of polarization in this country that many people, sadly even lawyers, when they tend to think that lawyers who handle either human rights cases or what, they think that it's volenti non fit injuria, but those people have assumed the risk. So when Aaron is arrested, they say, but those ones are handling. Kalari now has moved away from human rights, is now doing commercial. I think he's seeking a safer zone. Even people like my good brothers, the twins here, who are not politically aligned to any party, the moment they see them representing Kizza Besigye, they say, those ones they have assumed the risk, which is sad, of course. We should aspire for a country where you represent someone, whether you are wearing a purple tie or blue tie or red tie. I say a couple of brothers wearing yellow ties comfortably, without any fear of a drone parked at the head at the front of the gates. We know that as we talk about preparedness of elections, yesterday, those of you who watched the news when the Electoral Commission said that my good friend Julius has run away, we saw the Minister of Justice at the groundbreaking of the new EC office telling the media that they still intend to bring an amendment to the electoral laws. Never mind that the Electoral Commission will be nominating candidates in those elections in less than 60 days. But the Minister of Justice was comfortable addressing the media, saying, you know, the cabinet has instituted a committee, so it's still even within the cabinet. It hasn't even come to Parliament. We all remember that the Supreme Court, in the case of JPAM versus Yoweri Museveni and EC, talked about the issues of timely amendments. And it was just regurgitating that point. It had been said in 2001, it had been said in 2006. So the Supreme Court in 2016 went ahead and even gave the AG timelines to implement those structural interdicts. We know it was not done. Actually, I remember Professor Sempevo and Chituo Chakatiba had gone to court seeking an application to hold the Attorney General in contempt. So less than 60 days, because there are a number of court decisions which say that election is a process. Election is not polling day. It's a process. Right now, all parties are going through the internal processes. Electoral Commission has revised the roadmap downwards to even lower the time, but the Minister of Justice can comfortably say that, you know, we are bringing reforms and these will not affect the roadmap because they are well known. So preparedness of elections begins from there. We know that we have scars that have not healed from the last elections. The report talks about issues of enforced disappearances. We have 18 Ugandans who are still missing from the last elections. We have prisoners who have been held since the last elections. They are still in custody. We have people who were shot in the streets of Kampala. The government report said 54 people were shot by stray bullets. None of this is not for political players. Is that a drone? We have to ensure to realize that this is not for political players. Those 54 people were shot. We're not protesters. We are people who are not even engaged in politics. Lastly, Madam Chair, as I conclude, is the issue of the judiciary. How prepared is the judiciary to see that we enforce justice? Uganda Ntende, when he was receiving his honorary doctorate from Makerere, said the duty of any judicial officer is to breathe life into the Constitution. How prepared is our courts to breathe life into the Constitution? I remember just yesterday, a couple of us, some of them are in the room, like Dr. Lydia and Brabo, the twins, Carla and Stephen. We wrote a letter to the PJ talking about the issue of habeas corpus and how they are handled by civil division. There's a gentleman who is missing. I think he's a Ugandan based in South Africa who was last seen at Entebbe Airport. And the family applied for habeas corpus. And when it came up, apparently the judge told them to write written submissions on habeas corpus. I remember when we applied for habeas corpus for Eddie Mutwe, court fixed it for 2 weeks later after filing. What is the essence of habeas corpus? Someone's life is in unknown detention and it's on the line. And then a judicial officer says, you file submissions, I'll give a ruling on notice. Isn't court being complicit in this person's? Because the habeas is supposed to inquire into the legality of the detention. You're saying this person was last seen being taken back, and then court gives, well, you file today and then court gives it a date of 2 weeks later. So the manner in which courts ready to handle these issues. We have issues of human rights enforcement. Eddie Mutwe, who the report cites, we all saw how he appeared in court. And there's an application pending before the High Court at Masaka talking about one for bail and then for also seeking to, under the human rights enforcement, to declare the trial nullity. It has not been fixed because there have not been judicial officers. I remember lawyers at Masaka even went on strike because there are no courts to hear. So we have human rights enforcement causes which arise from the last elections, lying in the High Court Civil Division. They have not been heard. Habeas corpus, as you know, in the last election, over 50 habeas corpus applications were filed in the Civil Division of the High Court. And these we are seeking people who have been unknown, who have been taken by in unknown gazetted places. And many of those people came out as a result of court fixing and sometimes orders. So if we have to ask tough questions to our judiciary, that are we ready for the elections? Because at least we are ready for what our friends are going to do. But are we ready as courts to breathe life into the Constitution? I thank you.
So now we are going to open up the discussion to the plenary. If you have any question, we have at least, we're going to have a speech from the president of the East African Law Society, who is our keynote. I think it's going to be online. So if we have, we are going to use the next 10 minutes to get questions from the plenary, or 6 minutes. Any questions so that our presenters can answer? Thank you. Your name and then the question. The microphone people, please help us.
Thank you so much. I'm called Katoto Msime, and mine goes to Uganda Human Rights Commission. We have had a number of complaints and cases filed before the commission, but what surprises me and what I would want to know is the basis of how they categorize to handle matters differently, because sometimes they are reactional. Some of the cases or complaints are filed and handled within 1 or 2 weeks. Some take years. What is the basis of your consideration while determining these issues? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, I know you're having something to bite. We kindly request that we interrupt your meal, ask a question, so that we go to the next agenda item. Any other? Question, comment, let's feel free, please. Thank you.
Thank you, moderator. My name is Charles Kamuli, Assistant DPP from ODPP. I just want to respond to Council Matovu about the about the cases at the military tribunal following the Kabazikuruka case. You know, we are in transition, but I want to update you about what's happening. At ODPP, the DPP has set up a task force of senior legal officers who are working together with the UPDF officers in the tribunal to review these cases in preparation for the transfer or the transit from where they are to the new tribunal that will be formed. But as you know, even the new tribunal has not been formalized. So work is being done, but we cannot move so fast because even where the cases are going has not been set. So you know that there's some work being done. But this is not to tell you, these are not our cases. As I may maybe come out clearly, Mr. Musisi, these are not our cases. They are cases still in the military possession, but we are doing work to comply with the constitution. So don't say there's no work. No. Some work is being done. Now, ODPP, when it comes to elections, we also prepare for elections. We know next year will be a tough period. TPP usually sets up a special elections prosecution team. Not everybody prosecutes. So when it comes to the elections time, that's next year, we will have a special task force at our headquarters that will be able to answer your questions, that will be able to coordinate issues in the field of election-related cases. But these are purely criminal cases. Cases of people fighting at the polling stations, destroying electoral materials, insults on social media. We will have a special focus team to do those ones next year. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yes, Mommy.
Mr. Raphael Bako, you're welcome, our Solicitor General.
Thank you very much. I just want to take this time to commend the Uganda Law Society for continuing to publish the reports. I've been attending the launch of your reports for the last, I think, so many years, and I just want to appeal, please continue. It's very important, especially documentation. There is nothing as important as documenting. I want to commend your resilience, just to give you encouragement that we still need these reports. We need it for documenting. We need it for people understanding what goes on in our country. Of course, I want to express my disappointment that many lawyers are not here to support you, but even the few you have, please know that we are here to support the Law Society. We want it to continue. For us as in the legal profession, we always say, justice delayed is justice denied. And if you don't come up and speak up, who is going to do that? So please continue. There is a lot. What Council Sisi is talking about, the people who have been detained for years and years, rotting in prison, or their whereabouts are not known. There is a lot. There is a lot to do. And I know that the environment is still difficult for everyone, but I also commend those who still feel that they can stand up and talk. Please continue, Council Sisi. We are there listening, we are there watching, we are there to support all efforts to see that our country is back to course. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mommy, for those words of wisdom. Here we go.
Thank you. My name is Kalali Steven. I would have had a lot to talk about, but since we have a recent update from the Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs alongside the EC, I think let my focus be there. We have a decision that was pronounced by court, Kalali Steven versus the Electoral Commission and Attorney General, over the voting rights of prisoners and Ugandans living in the diaspora. It's a decision of way back 2021. A permanent injunction was issued against the Electoral Commission and the AG. These two entities gave court an undertaking that these two categories of people will be voting in 2026. As of now, I don't see any step towards that. I've also personally written correspondences to them. They seem not to be bothered. They are actually willing to disenfranchise these two categories of Ugandans. Now the question would be, if you're moving fast to introduce the biometric, whatever you may call it, and you're locking out Ugandans, the diaspora, who contribute, by the way, huge amounts of money and investment in the country, are we really ready for the 2026 general elections, or we are doing it as a scam? So I think maybe our colleagues from the Attorney General's chambers, if they are here, they could partly help us understand better in that light, as well as the Human Rights Commission, because I believe it also stretches to your docket, seeing fellow citizens disenfranchised when there is a court decision that has never been set aside. It has also never been appealed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the council. There is a question that has come on Zoom. Oh, there's a question from the treasurer. Later.
Thank you so much. My name is Isiko Arthur. My question goes to the Honorable George. In light of Article 1 of the Constitution of Uganda, which provides for sovereignty of the people, we have always been seeing comments coming through the security agencies and the Electoral Commission that there is failure to follow guidelines and election processes by political actors. And in due course, that has affected the credibility and cause the people that we intend to represent. So my question is it true that it's the political actors that actually bring about this election violence by failure to follow the election guidelines, or it is other state agencies? Please clarify on that issue, since that is your department.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. The panel is still active. The questions can still be directed to them. There's a
I
question.
think we are going to take, in the interest of time, like 2 or more questions so that the panelists can answer.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Close.
Afande?
Thank you. Mine is a reaction. First of all, I convey greetings to you from the Uganda People's Defense Forces, a force, people's force that is ready to protect and defend you. I'm reacting to Council Musisi's I'm not defending the institution of UPDF, but in compliance with the 31st Supreme Court judgment, we have complied. First of all, that judgment ordered all criminal trials, not only involving civilians, but even the men in uniform, also all those files to be handed over to the DPP. And from 31st January 2025, you have not had any trial, even involving our soldiers, in the military courts. So those military courts are not there. So that was the first compliance. Then the process of handing over the files, like he has put it, it is a transition. And we have submitted quite a big number of files. But there are some files also which where we are a bit perplexed on transferring them to DPP. For example, we have forces in different countries, and our soldiers do commit crimes there. For example, if a soldier commits a crime in Somalia, Congo, Central Republic, Africa, DRC, you know, Section 4 of the Penal Code Act limits the jurisdiction of criminal trials. So if we are to hand over these files for our forces which committed offenses in outside countries, then even the office of the DPP, because it is not mandated to create the jurisdiction of trial of these offenses, they get stuck with them. So it is a process, and we are forging a way forward on how to handle such matters. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Afande. This is the last, I think. Oh, it's quite a number. You'll excuse me, Council. These are concerns, comments, and questions. Some of them are from bigger people than us.
Thank you, panelists, thank you, Uganda Law Society. Charles Ouma is my name. I'm the Deputy Solicitor General. It's my maiden visit to the ULS House. 9 months after I was appointed. But I would like to reassure you that this visit should reflect a rapprochement between the Attorney General's chambers and the Uganda Law Society. The reason I'm here, first and foremost, on delegation by the Attorney General, is to reassure the ULS that the ULS is part of the justice process in this country. It's part of our legal system. And that means that whatever reports you come up with and whatever recommendations you come up with are of great relevance to the government of Uganda. Without further ado, I'm going to address a few issues. I know time is not our best ally, but Councillor Kalali raised very pertinent issues. The diaspora question, the prisoners. Generally, the principle is accepted by government that every Ugandan has a right to vote. The problem, I think, is steeped in our electoral system. And this is something that we are studying, and we may not be able to rectify before 2026. The way our electoral system is set out is that we have constituencies, and you vote according to your constituency. Take, for example, a member of parliament. We have so many prisons. Actually, the statistics were rather dumbfounding. About 79,000 people locked up in our prisons right now. Just think about it. How many constituencies do each of these prisoners come from? And you are supposed to vote within your constituency. That would entail a rather Herculean task of shifting and creating ballot boxes in each of these prisons to suit each and every prisoner on account of their constituency. So let's understand that it's steeped in the way we structured our electoral setup. So that means that there's need for a review of the same to take care of particularly the diaspora and the prisoners. And also for the diaspora, that means submitting all these ballot boxes for every constituency in every embassy. And remember, we are not like the US. We are not in every country in the world. So for instance, we have an embassy in charge of the Benelux. That's Belgium, Luxembourg, and France. So that means people have got to travel from those different countries to that particular embassy to vote. But I think with time, as long as we automate, we should be in position to redress this problem. As to the question whether Ugandans are ready for elections, it's a toss-up in the air. My land brother, George, has raised pertinent issues. But I think the preparation he is dealing with is from the government side. I prefer to look at it also from the citizenry. Are we as Ugandans ready for this election? We normally ask civil society in conjunction with the Electoral Commission to engage in civic education. I would like to implore the Uganda Law Society, funds permitting, to consider civic education to prepare our society for elections. The mudrak that we're engaged in, the abuses, the insults, the violence, is not only coming from the state, but also coming from our very own people. I see a need for a cultural shift in how our people think about elections. Elections seem to be a do or die affair. So the question we should be, or the matter we should be diagnosing here is, why has it gotten so bad? Is it because people are looking for employment? Do people understand what their rights are? Do people know that they can question candidates and avoid any retribution? So we also need to address that question. Are we as Ugandans ready for election? About the judiciary and their level of preparation for the electoral cycle, I can give an account that about 5 months ago, I was part of a team together with academia and private law firms that were facilitating a training for judges from the Court of Appeal up to the Supreme Court. They took a retreat and dedicated time, this is about Feb, March, I think, to reflect on how they handled election petitions in the past. What is it that is missing? What is it that they can do better? You talked about Justice Uganda and Tende talking about breathing life into the decisions that they render. Indeed, this is the kind of conversation that the judges are having. That we have got to ensure that even as we pursue this evolution in our democracy, as the judiciary, their desire is to ensure that there is transparency, that they transform the way elections should be handled and addressed in this country. So I think on their part, they're doing their best. I think as a citizenry, as a civic society, let's also do our part. As for the Attorney General, I should say that following my assumption of office, one of the things that I took key interest in is the census for all the cases that we are handling as government of Uganda. We have just concluded it. We are going to have a review next week. There are over 8,000 cases that the Attorney General is involved in. When we were reviewing the census of the judiciary, by my estimate, we contribute about 4% of the backlog already in the judiciary. But we have got definitely to profile these cases. I'm going to focus now on human rights. We definitely take cognizance that the question of human rights is a very big problem in this country, and there is need for a reversal of the trend. Otherwise, we are all going to get consumed. And that means we have got to diagnose where is the problem coming from. If it's from the MDAs, what is it that we have got to deal with? Does it mean we need an interface as Attorney General with these MDAs? Well and good. And then deal with the problem. If it's an issue to do with the citizens, because we also have incidents where civilians upon civilians commit human rights abuses. That means we also need to train our society to disabuse this notion that we are a violent society. Ugandans have always been known to be very collegial, very humble, very nice. But we are losing it. And that means we need to get involved and address and nip this in the bud. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Council. This is the last question, Council. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Kakuru Tumzime. I have like 2 issues to put across, but I'm not seeing any representative from the judiciary where my concerns go. But I will call upon our leaders at the Uganda Law Society to take it up and find better ways to handle. One, most of these political related cases we have handled, a judicial officer will provide a hearing notice, and then at the hearing date, they will tell you maybe a deputy registrar or a judge himself has forgot to sign a production warrant. And I wonder whether this is sleeping on a job or incompetence or whatever. I don't know. And remember, such nature of cases need some timely concerns. One, of how and why such applications or matters are filed. The other issue is also about the nature of human rights applications we make in court. It's been a challenge to most of us, and my colleagues would also be witnesses, that in most of the up-country courts, the judicial officers don't understand the nature of applications we make under the Human Rights Enforcement Act. You will spend like an hour explaining to the judicial officer why you have made such an application, not a plaint, not a whatever. And even here in Kampala and Wakiso, the judicial officers don't understand why you make such applications. These are human rights enforcements. And it's a challenge to us, the lawyers, who are mainly dealing with human rights. And I would like to call upon our leaders from the law society, at least to find ways of engaging with the judiciary, at least for them to appreciate the nature of applications we make under the human rights enforcement, because it is mainly to protect the rights of the citizens. I thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to the plenary. This has been an engaging team, group. So now we shall revert and let our panelists answer the questions. We shall start with the representative of the Uganda Human Rights Commission going forward.
Thank you very much for the discussion. Councillor Kato asked me about how we categorize the cases that we handle. I'll just start by saying that last year alone, 2024, we received over 3,700 complaints. Now, out of those, and for me, I think that is a positive, because it says that people believe that the Human Rights Commission is one of the first places or first points of call that you can run. But many times when we look at these complaints, you'll find that some of them are better addressed by court, however slow the system may be. Some are better referred to ministries, departments, and agencies to directly handle them, and then others we will investigate. So actually, we register for investigation about 10% of the cases that we receive. So how do we decide how to handle which case? Of course, we have a wide mandate. We have, for example, powers to make orders. So depending on the urgency of a matter, there will be times where the chairperson will directly receive a complaint and handle it immediately by issuing an order or otherwise. There will be cases where there's a need to do the investigations. Those are the 360 that I'm talking about. Those ones will now go into our formal system and be investigated at our different regional offices. But it may be a case, for example, many of the cases where someone is in illegal detention or we don't know where the person is incommunicado. We have a Directorate of Monitoring and Inspections, which will now start to informally try to find some information. Because in order for you to take any action, you have to have some basic information. Who was the last person who had this person? Where were they moved from the last known place? Now, that will not go into our formal investigation process. We have the Directorate of Monitoring and Inspections that will do some quick work, provide feedback, and then the Commission will take a decision on how to proceed. Then, of course, we have the tribunals, where now the cases have to go for hearing, for determination, for compensation, or any other remedy. So urgency is one of the considerations. The nature of investigation that is required. If you require more detailed investigation, it will go into the formal process, which will take much longer because of, I don't like to measure on the operational and administrative issues, but we've had a challenge in terms of the turnover time in handling our investigations. And now with more funding from government of Uganda, that is one of the things that we are hoping to address. I heard somebody say that we are now more responsive or more vibrant. Part of that is because we actually now have a bit more resources to act. If I am to tell you the budget that we've been working with, it's quite laughable. And then sometimes we just refer the cases. We refer and follow up to see what action has been taken. And then Councillor Kalali, I think the Land Deputy Solicitor General really answered this question. We are alive to the judgment of the court, and even as Uganda Human Rights Commission, we are very concerned about the disenfranchisement, particularly of the prisoners, because that's one of our major areas of concern. But like the Deputy Solicitor General has addressed, there are so many structural issues, and I don't think really government will be in position to do it by then, but the conversation is ongoing, and it's something that we are keeping tabs on. So I just want to assure Councillor Kalali that as Uganda Human Rights Commission, we are concerned about it, and we are engaged with the stakeholders around that. I think those were the two questions that were specifically addressed to me. I thank you very much.
Next in line.
Thank you very much. There was not any specifically to us as the fourth estate, but I just, for me, want to speak the issue of citizen awakening. Who is doing that role? I know it's supposed to be basically the role of the commission. Maybe we'll one time have a discussion on how much we have been able to go and what is there left. Because that is very instrumental in this journey that we are walking, actually even in the run-up to 2026. The other one is about promises of we are doing this, we are following up on the files, we are introducing electoral reforms, we are doing ABCD, and these things are not coming. Time is really running out. And sooner than later, we will be pressing any panic button around. And then we say we didn't have sufficient time. So the issue of us promising things that do not come to pass is a great concern, where people who hold offices of responsibility are speaking like they are not in those offices, like they are a government in waiting, that once they get into power, they will do those things. I would be more moved if we got an opportunity of telling me this ABCD we have done. We won't, like we're not looking forward to what we are going to do. The other hand is about our alliance against electoral violence, which was spearheaded by the Uganda Law Society. I'm sure this should be a national outlook for all of us to be part and parcel of this campaign to end electoral violence, because we've seen its dire consequences on Ugandans across the board. We have witnessed it in Kawempe, we have witnessed it in the recent party primaries, and we are so scared. My colleagues, the journalists, are telling us we are not covering elections again because of what befell them in the Kawempe North by-elections. So we really have to make this an active thing of everyday talk, how to end election-related violence. And finally, is for me to, about that violence, we are told that 15 people died in one of the NRM, during those primaries. The Uganda Human Rights Commission has said, I think their party mechanisms handling such. I don't know if that is the best place to channel such grievous concerns of people losing lives. I think those should be somewhere else than the party itself trying to say we are handling. I don't know how far justice is going to be dispensed to the victims if one is killing and they are appearing before a party mechanism, which for me has no power and mandate to hold them accountable. Thank you very much.
Ms. Kansunga, any comment?
Yes, thank you very much. I would like to start by commending the Uganda Law Society for having this discussion on the state of the rule of law in Uganda. The African Center for Treatment and Rehabilitation of Torture Victims so far has treated 12 individuals regarding election-related violence from the Kawempe North primaries. Actually, our office is in Kawempe North, so on that day we actually received 6 people we treated, and then but we have so far treated a total of 12. So that just shows you that this election cycle is fraught with violence. And maybe to update Council Charles Ouma that civil society is really trying its level best to have civic education. As SCTV, yesterday we created awareness with police officers from Kampala Metropolitan. Then last week we also had created awareness with the Electoral Commission, with the journalists. And we currently have a project jointly with Human Rights Center Uganda and the Uganda Human Rights Commission, where we are creating awareness in the northern parts of Uganda. So resources allowing, we are doing our bit, but indeed the issue of creating awareness, all stakeholders, both state and non-state actors, is an exercise which we should just continue to do until the election time. Because unfortunately it's a do or die affair. How do we put it across that you don't need to have violence to go through this process, but the do or die affair, winner takes all situation, I think is becoming a bit challenging for all of us. But otherwise, we just need to continue to create awareness, not only the ministries, departments, and agents, but also the citizens in the community. And indeed, the political actors, those who have the authority to make this not happen. Yeah, so I believe those are really my comments. Thank you very much.
Lastly, Councillor George Musisi.
Thanks, Anne. Two quick points. One, my brother Arthur asked me a question, which I want to partly merge with what our senior colleague Charles has mentioned about citizen preparedness. Arthur said, to what extent are political actors responsible? Well, since we are discussing rule of law issues, we should be advocating, because one of the essential elements of a rule of law is uniform application of the law, that let the law apply to all, irrespective of affiliation or otherwise. We know that there are many political actors who could be criminals, who could be violent, who could be, and we're not calling for the exclusion of any particular group from being subjected to the law. Before he started, I was sharing a joke with ADPP Charles about whether he's prosecuting or persecuting. And fortunately, he's one of the good ones who prosecute. So they may be political actors who may be, but the issue is, let the law apply to all uniformly. Simple as that. Violence comes when political actors, some, think that people who are supposed to be neutral arbiters, especially security agencies, have taken a side. In Remiaga, just a few weeks ago, we saw a person being shot by people who were in uniform similar to what Afande Raphael is wearing. Not exactly the same, but similar. But it was in broad daylight, and I saw the IGP come to there, but up to now, Charles has not gone there to prosecute anyone. But the shooting was in broad daylight. The people were known, at least the suspects. So what would you tell the other group? And I'm talking about NRM internal politics, because if the other people shot had been in red or any other color, maybe it would have been different. They would have said they provoked these people. But we're talking about internal NRM primaries. What message does that send to the other group who have lost a person and no one has been held accountable? So let the law apply to all political actors. That way, we shall be able to come, if any person, irrespective of political affiliation, has committed a crime, let them be prosecuted. Problem comes when you hold some, or when even security itself takes part in managing the other ones. Of course, naturally, as human beings, it may lead to unnecessary consequences of violence and confrontations which we don't want and which are not called for. And then lastly, ADPP seemed to give that, I don't know whether your communication was the fact that, because I want to merge it with the issue of what Kale raised. The Supreme Court's order, and Afande Raphael here, I'm only concerned about the issue of civilians. I'm not concerned about the other orders. The issue of transfer was that transfer these files involving civilians at whatever stage in ordinary courts. The order was not to the effect that you wait for a new amendment and then you'll transfer to a newly established tribunal. That is similar to what Khaled is saying about his judgment. that the judgment was clear. Because since we are discussing rule of law, what should happen to court orders? Are court orders negotiable? Are court orders to be negotiated that when we get money we shall? Let me end by a question which was asked by one of our senior colleagues to the Supreme Court when we were talking about the Supreme Court ordered that Attorney General should bring amendments. Mr. Robert Chirunda asked court that if orders of the Supreme Court cannot be respected, then which orders will be? And of course, I have heard our colleague from UHRC saying, you know, sometimes structural issues, voting that, I'm sure she was hinting on money, and it's very hard to convince any Ugandan here that the reason why some of these orders are not implemented is because of money, especially Ugandan who lives in Uganda. When even the other day, we saw cars being dished to all tribes of traditional leaders. Even our colleague, Senior Raphael here, if you had been a traditional leader, would have got. We saw traditional leaders we've never heard of before getting 500 million cars and another escort vehicle. So it's very hard to convince that after 5 years, after the colored decision, one, before even got the structural issues, there's not been any amendment in the law. Because the first thing is to amend the law to ensure that there's no operational law which has been brought 5 years to operationalize the colored decision. So it may not augur well that it's about money. It may not be about money. It could be about the political will to do so. Yet, the constitutional requirement is clear that government should do all it can to ensure that every person who is eligible to vote, votes. It's clear, and it's coached in mandatory terms. Maybe we should also abandon these expensive elections and we go the NRM style of lining up. I thank you.
Thank you to our distinguished panelists for availing yourselves to discuss critical and pertinent issues that affect our country, and for the engaging audience and the questions and comments and contributions that you have made. I thank you. So I will hand over to my co-moderator to come and invite the Vice President.
Thank you so much once again for the panelists. Thank you for our co-moderator. Another round of applause. Some triggering questions. Thank you for the comments. They have been so fruitful. The questions were also mind-boggling. We thank you so much, the Deputy Solicitor General, for coming forth and continuing to associate yourself with us, because anyway, you belong here. We don't want to disown you. You are our very own. We want to thank you for the message that you have delivered. And we continue to thank the general public and those that are physically present. May you be informed that we have an online following. We have over 150 individuals following us on Twitter, or rather, X, formerly Twitter. YouTube, we have around 50. And then, yes, and then YouTube, they're around 30. So yes, digital transformation as one of the tenets of the Radical New Bar is one of our voices. We want to take the law to the masses, regardless of being away from the Uganda Law Society House where we are seated right now, as well as democratization, decolonization, and demilitarization. So, Afande, in your very glamorous attire, we still want to associate with you, and as well, make sure that the UPDF is understood from the perspective that you, as you said, are the people's force, amongst other things, without pointing fingers. The Uganda Police Force, of course, the security organs are supposed, and indeed, like it has already been captured in the report, there are some stories that we need to commend you for. But again, of course, as we know, we're not perfect. There are some loopholes. There's some work to be done, which of course calls for a continued discussion of this nature. So thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. We are coming to close to the end of our function today. We say this was a breakfast meeting. We're not going to spend the whole day. We are going to take the honor to introduce the keynote speaker, and I would like to invite the Vice President of the Uganda Law Society to introduce the next dignified speaker, who is not somebody that we cannot wait to hear from. And indeed, the Vice President will help us to introduce him.
All right. Thank you, Robert. And thank you, members, for being patient with us. Our time is fast spent, and my role here is to invite the keynote speaker. Now, let me take the singular honor to invite our president of the East Africa Law Society, Mr. Ramadan Abubakar Mukira. We are so glad that you could join us. Ramadan is very far, but he accepted to come and grace this occasion. He is a passionate and a seasoned litigator, boasting over a decade of enriching experience in legal practice. His journey has been defined by navigating the intricate landscapes of constitutional petitions, judicial review applications, civil cases, and election petitions. He is a familiar face at the Supreme Court, Court of Appeal, and High Court of Kenya, and proudly serves as lead counsel in these pivotal matters. Beyond the courtroom, he extends his expertise through consultancy services across a spectrum of legal domains, from commercial law to employment law and constitutional law. His proficiency encompasses a diverse range. He specializes in environmental and land law, administrative law, law of succession, including Islamic law, cybersecurity law, immigration law and employment, and labor law. He holds a postgraduate diploma in law from the Kenya School of Law, a certificate in mediation from the Mediation Training Institute East Africa, and a Bachelor of Law from Catholic University of East Africa. One other thing I need to say about Ramadan is that he's someone who is passionate about legal aid and pro bono. And one thing I learned is that he represents the indigent, the marginalized. He has a story to tell. I don't want to go into that story. But One Ramadan Abubakar, you're welcome to address the congregation.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. VP. Kindly do confirm that you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear, Mr. President.
Perfect. Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Get a chance to have some coffee myself. But it is indeed an honor for me to be here. Let me start by recognizing the protocol. Mr. Charles Ouma, Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, Mr. Charles Kamuli, ODPP, Colonel Raphael Mugisha, UPDF, Mr. Julius Msunguzi from the Electoral Commission, Hilda Taliba, IGG, Pauline Ansaba, UHRC, Zempala Robert from the Human Rights Network for Journalists, Mr. Samuel Subuga, ACTV, Margaret Stekagia, Human Rights Center, Uganda, representatives from HURIPEC, Center for Constitutional Governance, Defenders, members of the Fourth Estate, the Vice President, Mr. Anthony Esimwe, my good friend, the Treasurer, learned colleagues, those who are online and physically present, good morning. It is a singular honor and personal delight to join you this morning at this momentous launch of the Uganda Law Society Rule of Law Report. I bring you warm fraternal greetings from Arusha, the judicial capital of East Africa, and from all the 8 bar associations, over 45,000 members of the East Africa Law Society. And as you may all be aware, we incorporated Ethiopian Bar as part of the East Africa Law Society. We did this way ahead from the EAC Secretariat. So you can clap for us for that. The launch of this report is not just ceremonial milestone. It is a living testament to the resilience, relevance, and rising strength of our legal fraternity. Today, we celebrate not only an institution, but an idea that law must stand as the shield of the powerless, the constraint of power, and the heartbeat of democratic life. Allow me, at the outset, to salute the Uganda Law Society and the radical new bar for its exemplary leadership. The Rule of Law report for the first and second quarters of 2025 is not only rigorously done, it is also courageous. It is a mirror of our society, unflinching and unfiltered in its authorship. and a reflection of where Uganda stands and what the region must confront. It neither spares the truth nor withholds hope. This is the kind of leadership our region needs: evidence-based, independent, and principled. Colleagues, in every generation, the legal profession is summoned to rise above silence, above convenience, and above fear. Ours is a region blessed with promise, but also bruised by power unchecked. Across East Africa, we are witnessing disturbing trends. Judicial pronouncements are ignored or manipulated. Civic space is shrinking beneath the weight of intolerance and impunity. Abductions are increasing. Journalists are silenced. Lawyers are harassed. Citizens abducted. Military tribunals returning to try civilians in blatant violation of constitutional order. We are in an era where leadership does not want to be questioned and held accountable. Law societies across the region are now the hope of citizens. We must stand up and play this role. Uganda is not alone in this struggle. From Nairobi to Bujumbura, from Dodoma to Kigali, Kampala to Juba, Addis Ababa to Mogadishu, the same contest between legality and impunity is unfolding. What makes the difference is how boldly our bar associations respond. And Uganda, through the Uganda Law Society, has led with clarity, consistency, and constitutional fidelity. Indeed, the East Africa Rule of Law Index 2024, launched by the East Africa Law Society, laid bare this regional crisis. A striking 53% of respondents across the region expressed little or no confidence in their government's willingness to obey court orders. While Uganda ranked higher in public trust for its judiciary than many of its peers, the index also flagged persistent concerns about executive overreach and selective enforcement. These are not academic figures. They are a reflection of lived experiences and a call to action for all of us. When law loses its moral authority, power fills the vacuum and society pays the price. I must again commend ULS for not just observing this crisis, but confronting it. The Supreme Court landmark ruling outlawing the trial of civilians in military courts was a constitutional triumph. And when that ruling was disregarded, your society boldly sought redress at the East Africa Court of Justice, setting a high watermark for strategic, fearless legal advocacy. When a human rights lawyer like Aaron Kiza is jailed without due process, when street children are rounded up without cause, when public resources meant for the most vulnerable are siphoned off through corruption, the legal profession must not go quiet. It must speak, challenge, document, and defend. And ULS has done just that. Friends, as president of the East Africa Law Society, I am proud that our regional bar stands shoulder to shoulder with the Uganda Law Society. Together, we must continue to insist that judicial independence is not a slogan, but a cornerstone of governance. To affirm that bail is not a gift, it is a right. To remind our states that enforced disappearances, arbitrary detentions, and impunity have no place in a constitutional democracy. Let us also reflect inwardly. The rule of law is not merely what we demand for governments, it is what we practice within our own associations. We must raise the bar of ethical lawyering, cultivate mentorship for younger lawyers, and reimagine the legal profession in a digital and disrupted world. Justice must not only be done, it must be felt, seen, and remain accessible. And let us be regional in both vision and action. Every unlawful arrest in Kampala, every ignored court order in Nairobi, every suppressed dissent in Juba is not just a national problem. It is an East African one. If we are to build a truly integrated East Africa, we must construct a shared legal culture anchored in rights, reasons, and responsibility. To this end, I will be proposing to the East Africa Law Society Council that we convene a regional rule of law dialogue dedicated platform for bar associations, judiciary, civil society, and academia to craft a common vision for legal accountability across our region. Let Kampala be the birthplace of that effort. In conclusion, let us recommit today and every day with the sacred calling we share. Let us not stand with power, but with principle, but rise in solidarity. Let us continue to prove that when the law is weaponized, the loyal must become the shield. As I reflect on my own journey in this profession, I recall a moment early in my career when I watched a magistrate rule against a sitting minister here in Kenya. No fanfare, no fear, just fidelity to the law. That memory stays with me as a reminder that the law, at its best, does not serve power. It serves the people. The rule of law is not a catchphrase. It is a daily test of institutions, of governments, and of ourselves. May the Uganda Law Society continue to rise. May its voice remain clear. And may we as East African lawyers never shrink from our duty to defend liberty, equity, and the rule of law. I thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Words cannot express what you just gave to us. Liberty and equity is what exactly we are about. The rule of law is a cornerstone of any country. We're so grateful for your message, and we don't want to imagine that it could have been any better without your message, for standing with us as the East Africa Law Society, for which majority, if not all advocates that are members of the Uganda Law Society are also members of the East Africa Law Society. So we are so honored by your message, Mr. President, and we want to associate ourselves with you and pray that the Lord equally bless you in your leadership, and wherever you are, as time goes by, we shall hope that once we shall have you here in Uganda in the physical. Ladies and gentlemen, that has been a good example of digital transformation, a message coming from the President, East Africa Law Society, as the keynote speech for our day as we are launching the Rule of Law report. And we are coming very fast to the close of the day, having heard from the keynote speaker, as well as the other presenters and the public at large. We want to thank you for those that are physically present and those especially that are joining us online in regard to this function. At this juncture, I would like to, without further ado, invite the Vice President of the Uganda Law Society to give us his closing remarks so as to have a close for the day. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, the Vice President of the Uganda Law Society.
Thank you very much, Robert. Once again, I do, on behalf of the Governing Council, the President and the Council members, appreciate your presence here today and for having graced this occasion. We do not take it for granted that you spared your time, both of you are here physically and those online. Now, as we've launched this Rule of Law report, and like I said earlier, it is not just a ceremonial event. It is not just a ceremonial event. It's something we commit to do as the Uganda Law Society for the benefit of the, members of the public and in fulfillment of our statutory mandate. Now, before I conclusively dismiss you, allow me invite our treasurer, we call him the Governor Bank of ULS, to come and say hello to the people present. It will be very dangerous for me not to give him this platform because members will be asking me, where is our money? He's the one who can answer those questions. Just to say hello to them.
Good morning, everyone. As introduced, my name is Isiko Arthur. I have a very simple task today. A task to only say hello. But the most important of all, I would like to thank all the participants of today, all our invited guests, practicing and members of the Fourth Estate as clearly elaborated by our brothers. Thank you so much for partaking in this historical or special event of Uganda Law Society, where we actually are painting a picture of the state of rule of law that exists in this wonderful nation, Uganda. As clearly talked about by most of the participants, rule of law is the foundational stone. It's the cornerstone on which all other core principles or fundamental rights of all civilians is based. And we do believe that if all the stakeholders, judiciary, the army, name it all, if they are there at rule of law, then Uganda will actually be a beautiful place to live in. Since my only assignment was to say hello, I'll end by thanking you and saying that please enjoy your stay. We have so many things in stock for all our visitors. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much, Governor. He told you there's a lot in store, so you don't have to leave. And before I conclude, please let's clap for our panelists. I want to believe they did us justice. And also, please let's clap for all our stakeholders who have joined us today. Because clearly not everyone who was invited made it here, but you spared your time to be here. And let's also clap for our able team here, the Secretariat, who have made this happen. We do not take their efforts for granted. They keep this place, they keep the ULS house shining as you found it. Now, as I conclude, and like I said earlier, let's not just keep this report. Let's go look at the report. Let's go look at the findings. Let's reflect. And at least each and every one of us should be able to make a contribution in ensuring that what is discussed in there, whatever recommendation is put in there, is seen and is put to reality. At the Uganda Society, we are available and open for guidance. You can always walk in here. You can always reach out to the Secretariat and say, I have this idea. Please put this on paper. It's not that it's meant for only, the council members or Secretariat, all lawyers who are here, but we do open up to receive any guidance, any recommendation, and any contribution anyone can make. And once again, you're always welcome to the Uganda Society House. Allow me also remind you of our Digital Tech Fest, which is coming up on the 14th and 15th. Like Treasurer was saying, you saw our keynote speaker, whom I also request you to clap for. The President, ELS, East African Society, who has joined us from overseas. Going forward, we should not have excuses for not participating in some of these insightful events, regardless of where you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. At least you can spare a minute. And the President, our keynote speaker, has demonstrated that. That is what we've been pushing for. That is why we have digital transformation as one of our core agendas. I also would like to thank the Rule of Law Club presidents who are with us here. In fostering the rule of law in this country, we also work with law schools. I don't know, where are the Rule of Law Club presidents in the room? Please rise up and they clap for you. Yes, thank you for coming. Now, when we talk about the Rnblive Vision 2060, those are the torch bearers of this vision, because we believe when we begin at this stage, some people before never got a chance to appreciate this from law school. It was just about academics and passing. But we believe it is through empowering the young generation, the people who are behind us, who are joining the field, to understand and appreciate the importance of the most core values and importance of a lawyer and the legal practitioner in this country, to promote the rule of law and access to justice. They do represent a whole lot of, students, law students behind them, and we believe when we begin like this, we shall for sure achieve our Vision 2060, where we want to see a just society, a society where rule of law is respected. What is the rule of law not ruled by the law? So once again, thank you very much for coming. You're always welcome to the ULS house, and allow me wish you a nice weekend ahead. But please feel free to, to look around the Uganda Law Society House. There's a lot that you can see. You don't have to move away right now. And you're always welcome. It's always open. Thank you very much. I declare this launch closed for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Vice President, on behalf of the Council of the Uganda Law Society and the Secretariat. Like he has said, the day has ended, the functions have gone through, the speeches were beautiful. Without saying much more, we close this function and departure at leisure. Feel free to interact. We are going to close this, as has been said, and you're all free to leave at leisure. Thank you so much.